Formula One rolls into a freezing cold Vegas, baby, as the championship hots up. Lando Norris leading by just a slender 24 points ahead of McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri. 3 races remaining, coming thick and fast. Plus, those John Elkin comments telling his drivers to talk less and focus more on driving. Lewis Hamilton has his say. We will discuss all that and lots more in this episode of Inside the Piranha Club. I'm Rebecca Clancy.
And I'm Ben Hunt. And yeah, it was pretty interesting media day, actually, wasn't it? I was awake, listening to all that last night and watching it come in. So
Well, Vegas is a weird
crazy,
one, isn't it? So,
crazy timing.
yeah, Vegas, you have to stay on Japanese time, which is really bizarre. And they've moved the race forward 2 hours this week, or this year, I should say. So it's at 8 o'clock rather than 10 o'clock, which means it's now at 4 a.m. rather than 6 a.m. in the UK. Either way, it's not great. But basically, you stay on Japanese time. I think year one, I was absolutely screwed. I actually did a bit more Vegas time last year, and that actually was better for me. I thought that felt much better. Um, but yeah, it's a what time zone are you on? You've just got back from
Okay.
Vancouver,
Yeah,
and then you're off to the Gold Coast
yeah.
in a couple of days.
Yeah, my travel schedule's been a bit bonkers. I got stuck in Vancouver for an extra 24 hours after missing a flight. First time I've missed a flight in ever in my life. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I like to get to airports nice and early.
About a connecting flight, it
It
wasn't
was
your
a
fault.
connecting flight. It
Yeah,
was a
Ben is that
connecting flight.
person if you ever travel with him, and I actually categorically do not travel with Ben because he likes to get to the airport 4 hours early, whereas I'm a bog standard hour and a half to 2 hours early.
Yeah, well, I was 23 and a half hours or something ridiculous early for my flight home, which I eventually got on because, yeah, the plane turned up late in Vancouver, 2 hours late, which meant I missed my connection. But worst of all, I landed at something like 9:29. It was 9:29 when the doors opened on the plane. I got out, went to run to find the connecting flight, which actually took off early. It took off 2 minutes early, or departed 2 minutes early at 9:33. So there was no way I was going to make it, nor my luggage. So I had to stay an extra night. So
Do they
fortunately,
put you up in a hotel?
yeah. So fortunately, there was an airport hotel, quite a nice Sheraton hotel attached to Toronto. So I stayed in that for about 12 hours, and then
Did you not get out and about?
back home.
It's Toronto's great. I went a couple of years ago after Montreal. I did a little trip down to Toronto. It was
I
brilliant.
had a bit of work to do, so
Oh, fair
I
enough.
was just cracking on basically. But yeah, and then back for a couple of days. Time zone's a bit of a mess, and then yeah, Gold Coast.
But we're
So
late recording this because Ben's been asleep.
yeah, this is true, and I I apologise to you and our producer Miles because I was awake and then fell back to sleep. But that was part of being up late last night as well. So
I know. Well, you were messaging me at 1 a.m. and then you were messaging me again at half 7 in the morning. So when we logged on to record this, it was like he's definitely asleep.
yeah, but all good. No, and yeah, it's probably fitting that we're talking about Vegas and time differences and the body clock,
Yeah.
especially that first year. If you remember when we had all that delay, didn't we, with the drain
Oh,
cover that popped up?
23-hour working day. I'll never
Yeah,
forget it. I was broken.
yeah, that was a long old one, and then that kind of set the tone as what's acceptable, really, didn't it? And
But it made it even worse. We then had to fly to Abu Dhabi.
yes, that's true.
Do you remember the
Yeah,
double header at the end? And we were
yeah.
utterly
But of course,
destroyed.
this is now triple header. So
And it's now a triple header. Yeah, we've got Vegas, Qatar, and then Abu Dhabi with the sprint thrown in the middle in
yeah,
Qatar.
yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness,
All
what a
right.
load to come. So
All right, let's get
yeah,
into it. So, as mentioned, 3 races, 1 sprint, which means there are 83 points still up for grabs as we head into the absolute business end of the season. Lando Norris has a 24-point lead over his McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri and 49 points ahead of Red Bull's Max Verstappen. It is a huge swing for Lando Norris in his favour. 58-point swing since Zandvoort. He was 34 behind, now 24 ahead. Um, it's all just going in his favour, isn't it? It's his to lose
yeah,
now. And he can
yeah,
afford to finish second in all three races and the sprint and still claim the championship now.
But there's no driver that would do that, is there? They all want to win. So
Well, here's the question. What does that do to your mentality? Do you take it a bit easier? If Max Verstappen's coming up your inside, do you give him a bit more room? Like how do you approach these final three races with your maiden title, your fingertips just so close to that trophy?
yeah, it's true. And I think us talking about it is obviously going to be different to being inside the cockpit and that, rush of blood to the head moment. But I think that Norris now knows that the championship won't be won or lost in one of these GPs, and in fact, it's all of them remaining, including the sprint as well. So he probably won't. He probably won't be putting it. He probably won't be stressing too much and putting it all in one race. I think that he'd be mindful enough to sort of steer clear of trouble, but also not afraid to make the overtake when he thinks it's on. I think he's hardwired that way. I've been quite enjoying watching him over the last couple of races develop and sort of get in front and not stress. And I think that that's been quite good to see from his, maturity and evolution as a driver. I still think there could be another twist. I think that we've been denied some of that this year. I think that yes, the championship has changed hands, but I think that there's probably still something left for us to get stuck into, and I hope there is.
Well, I think we should get stuck into the fact that it is absolutely freezing in
Mm.
Vegas. There has been huge downpours of rain. We've seen some flooding in Vegas. Um, that tends to favour the Mercedes pair. And Kimi Antonelli is on a very good run at the moment. George Russell has two race wins to his name. A lot of chatter in the paddock is about the fact that Mercedes are favourite this weekend. Okay, you could argue that they've changed their car since last year, and that it's not necessarily so much about the cold, the Pirelli getting their Pirelli tyres to work in the cold weather. Actually, they're trying to get their car to work at every track. But George Russell's victories have come in Canada and Singapore, and they are both street circuits, both long straights, both very similar to this track, which is why they are going in as the favourites. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is going to be a factor for Norris to take into account.
yeah, and like I say, I don't think that he'll be too. I mean, you said about finishing second. He just needs to finish ahead of Max and Oscar. And I go, and again, I said, he's not wired that way, but ultimately that's where he needs to be. So um, let's see what happens. I mean, yeah, like I was very impressed with Russell last year in Vegas. I thought that he drove a really good race, but um, getting back to the rain, I think the rain it will probably clear up a little bit. I don't think it's going to hose it down all weekend. I know that they put warnings in place, but also some of those pictures on social are fairly
Yeah,
misleading because,
yeah, they are.
as we know, the US is built with these flash floods and storms in mind, and they were obviously very clearly drainage lanes or spots or
Yeah,
whatever they call them. So
doing their
I
job.
think it was, yeah, exactly, doing their job, taking the water away from everywhere else. So I don't think it'll be too impacted. But of course, what it does mean is that the track will be green anyway because it's not a racetrack during the day. It's a normal road, and of course, it's all been cleaned up even more with regards to the rain. So it's going to be very green. Those first few laps are going to be very tricky. It's going to be like ice, and hard to get those tyres switched on. So I think the first couple of sessions are going to be a bit sort of nervy, but then we should
Yeah,
see
yeah.
once the track rubber's in, it should all go back to normal.
But it's not drying is the issue because it's so cold. And like you mentioned ice, when it's drying up, you could potentially get these ice patches. Fernando Alonso was talking in the press conference yesterday. We're recording this on Thursday. Everything is a day early, we should say, including the race, which is on Saturday night. Alonso was saying if it's wet, it'll be fun to watch, but not fun to drive. None of the drivers want to drive this in the wet. It is very fast. They get up to, it was like 250 kilometers, maybe even 300 kilometers an hour on the strip with a very hard braking point at the end. Um, the drivers are actually slightly dreading a wet race, and it's just not drying. It's too cold. You see it in Brazil, it rained a bit, but it dries within the hour. Silverstone the same, but it's just not happening in Vegas. And obviously the sun goes down, so it's not got any of that to help it dry out. So it could be quite a risky weekend.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember how cold it was last year, and sort of. Do you remember like everyone was going through like loads of lip balm because
Yeah.
everyone's lips were cracking, and I remember buying moisturiser and sticking it on my face going bright red like a berry because it was just so
You had like
dry.
some weird reaction.
Yeah, yeah. It was just so dry out there.
One of our friends messaged Ben and I in our WhatsApp group that we have and said he's there this year and he said it's great going to CVS and not having to wait for 45 minutes while Ben decides to pick something from CVS because Ben isn't the most decisive person. And I think we were in CVS last year for about 45 minutes while you decided to buy a toothpaste, which you
Yeah,
said you still haven't used.
I haven't used. Yeah, yeah. So we'll open it at one point. Um, Miles has asked a question. He says, "Don't they open the track to traffic between sessions?" No, they don't. They don't
Not on the
open it.
day.
No, no. But
Overnight they do.
overnight they do, and that's part of the reason of bringing it forward because the track, I think, is closed to the public. I'm not sure what exact time, but it's usually early afternoon. And the frustrating thing was that they didn't go racing on it until like 3 or 4, 5 hours later, and the track was closed for such a long period of time. It didn't make much sense, but at least this way that it'll be closed to the public, and then we can get racing on it. So that'll be good. I think the earlier time makes more sense for those people there because it will allow people to go and watch the F1 and then go and do something afterwards. I think that was
What
probably
could
one
they
of the
possibly be
problems.
doing?
Well, who knows? Who knows? But gambling, that's what they
Mm.
want to get
I
people
mean,
back in the casinos.
the casinos are absolutely delighted with F1. We know it's a 10-year deal. We know F1 own this race. They are the first time they've ever been the promoter. They spent 500 million building a permanent paddock building. This weekend used to be the quietest weekend in Vegas because it's the weekend before Thanksgiving. No one's traveling. Everyone stays where they are. So it was a very quiet weekend. The last 2 years, the 2 years that that F1 have been in Vegas, it's been one of their busiest weekends. So I'm sure the casinos are absolutely delighted and had possibly nothing to do with the fact that it was moved forward. If you're calling me a cynic, which many of people do. But yeah, it's good. It's fun. And actually, it's better when you're on site. I know this is quite niche when you're there, but actually, it being slightly earlier, one of the big problems that we have within the media is that it's really hard to get food. So
Yeah.
you basically, when you're on your way into the track, you have to stock up on as much food as you can possibly eat in one sitting because you know that might be the only time you eat that day. Because when you're finishing, particularly for us when we're writing for newspapers back in the day, we're on deadlines and because it's 4 o'clock in the morning, actually you've got to write something. It's Sunday, 4 o'clock. Can you imagine writing for Monday's paper at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning? You've got to
Mhm.
be creative with how you write it. And so it ends up being quite a long night, let's say. But yeah, so it's quite hard to get food. And then for reasons that never made any sense to me in a city which is apparently 24/7, you couldn't get a beer after like 3 a.m., which is about the
Yeah.
time that we used to finish. Definitely couldn't get any food. And so you'd just kind of be walking around Vegas and there'd be people just sat on slot machines. But like I find it such a weird place.
Yeah, it is a strange place, isn't it, for anyone that's not been. I don't think you need to go for more than 24 hours, really. Once you've seen a few bits and pieces there, it's pretty much done. I know that some people really love it, but for me, it doesn't really. It's not the great experience that I was hoping that it would be. It's a rather strange home for Formula One. I get why it's there, and I get the fact that it is popular, but it doesn't. It's just a little bit out of kilter with where I would have presumed would have been home for Formula One. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to Vegas outside a race weekend, but I also don't really want to either.
yeah, I have, but it's and obviously it's busier in terms of holiday makers, etc. But it's still a strange place. It's just an odd place to have a Formula One race and to make it the base. And we're told that it's a success because of the numbers that it brings in. But long term, will it be a successful project? Who knows? But I can't help feeling that they would have been better US cities for Formula One to base itself in.
Yeah, well, also, they never tell us the metric of success, so they can just say it and we can't really challenge them on it. The Chicago, we know, were desperate for a race, and that just got shut down, which really baffles me because Chicago is such a massive sporting city, has great NFL teams, baseball teams, NBA teams. Um, So that one bamboozled me. And then obviously we have the never ending conversation around New York and it possibly being in New Jersey. That was a bit of a runner for a while, but then eventually got shut down. Yeah, Vegas. Vegas is Vegas, right? It was the place that Bernie Ecclestone, the former F1 boss, Primo, he always wanted Vegas, didn't he? But he never managed it.
Supremo.
Instead,
I
he
love
ran a
that. I love
Supremo.
that. Everyone
Well, he
referred
ran
to him
a
as
he ran a
Supremo.
Vegas race around where was it? Caesar's Palace car park.
Yeah.
That was about as close as he ever got to the strip. Um, oh yeah, I know. It is fun. It's fun. It is fun. The timings are really weird, and it's really cold, and
I think for me, it looks great on TV, and
does look
anyone
great on
that's
TV.
not there is like, oh yeah, we should go because it
Yeah.
looks great with all the neon and the sphere and everything else. It looks absolutely brilliant. I think for those people there in the cold, waiting for those sessions to start, I think it's a slightly different prospect. If you remember where all the grandstands are as well, a lot of them are on straights, aren't they? So you don't actually get to see much action. Do you remember he was in the
Yeah, Bellagio.
yeah.
So I was going to say, so actually, I don't want to be completely negative about it because I have had a couple of good years in Vegas. When we went to go and see the Bellagio setup in the first year, where they're trying to convince the media about this great race and selling it to us, and we were all pretty negative at this point. And they took us up to the Bellagio, and they built one of their hospitalities over the Bellagio, just the kind of front portion of the Bellagio fountain, so the fountains can still do their thing, and it's just over the front bit of the water. And then on the other side, you have the track. And I actually thought it was amazing. And remember, you and I were talking about it because I think it was something like $13,000 for a weekend race ticket, full hospitality, everything, room, food, drink, the whole weekend, and this amazing spot. And I was thinking, okay, $13,000 is a lot of money, but it's not like a wild sum of money because we had also been given a tour of the paddock building. And in the paddock club, they had a section, and I mean, I literally, you might as well have just roped it off. It's like saying you can only pee in this corner of the pool, sort of thing. And it was £1 million for the weekend, $1 million,
Yeah.
sorry, for the weekend. And we were like, sorry, what? And it worked out at, I think it was $50,000 per head because you could get 20 people
But yeah,
there.
that's right. It was £1 million for the suite, wasn't it, or the
Yeah,
area?
and it was yeah, so 50 yeah. So it was 20 people and it was $50,000. And I thought and then we went to the Bellagio and I was like I would definitely just pay for the Bellagio over the Paddock Club. They're going to take my pass off me for Abu Dhabi after hearing this. But anyway, but I thought it was amazing. I thought being out there because often when you go to races, people always want to be in the paddock, and that's where everyone wants to be. But actually, I was thinking I'd rather be at Bellagio, and then they do the podium over there now as well. So
Yeah, that's
actually,
good.
it's pretty cool how they do it. That is really good for me. If I was going, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near the pit building, which is like grey, horrible,
Yeah, but there's an
like
ice rink. Well, there was an
soulless.
ice rink on the top. I don't know if the ice rink is back this year.
Oh, I don't care. I hate that paddock. It's almost as bad as the Monaco paddock in terms of just so soulless. But anyway, yeah, so you're better off not being anywhere near the paddock in Vegas. Go to the Bellagio and then go straight to the casinos when it's all over and warm up because it is
Yeah.
freezing. Right, anyway, we have massively digressed.
Yes.
I don't even know if we've talked about the race itself. Let's talk about. So we did Norris, we've done Verstappen. Right, look, let's talk
Hmm.
about Verstappen quickly because he is still mathematically in the title fight. He won in Vegas in 2023. He had the most amazing recovery drive last time out in Brazil. However, he can be knocked out this weekend from the title fight if Norris outscores him by 9 points, which he has only done 5 times this season. Although I actually think that stat's quite impressive given the bad start to the season that Norris had.
Hmm.
So, as you say, Ben, it is going to take something, although you think that there's still something that's going to happen. What do you think Verstappen's mindset is coming into this weekend?
Well, all in, if we're going to be using terms associated with
Cliches.
failure and cliches, yes. I think he's just got to go for it, hasn't he? It's a reverse psychology to Norris. Verstappen's just got to go for it. He's got to finish ahead of Lando. He's got to win the race, and I think that's not too alien for him. It's probably how he goes into every single weekend. I think he's at peace with losing the World Championship. I think that he probably had that moment halfway through the year when he looked at the standings and saw that he was quite far behind. In all honesty, he probably didn't expect to still be in the championship at this point. So it's been a bonus. While there's a chance, he will continue to fight for it, but he's just got to go for it, hasn't he? Put the pressure on Norris, put the pressure on Piastri, and see how they respond. And I think, that's probably what Max likes to do to his competitors, to squeeze them, see how they stand up. And it'll be good testament for Norris to see how he responds, and Piastri, of course, who's still in this fight, as we mentioned. I think it's psychologically going to be really interesting this weekend. Max is at peace, but that said, it will still hurt, I think, if he were to be taken out of the title race at this point and surrendering his crown. He's already mentioned the fact that he wants to change
Yeah.
his number next year. He got that in early, didn't
Oh,
he?
I love that.
Um,
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
the world champion has the right to have number one on their car, and he's already said that next year he wants 33,
Yeah,
um,
he's going back to
his number back.
33.
If he wins
Yeah.
the title or not, he's still going to have 33 on the car. Well, let's see. But
Yeah. That
it's quite,
soundbite's coming back at the end of Abu Dhabi, isn't it?
it was quite amusing.
It was very, very amusing. Let's move on to talk about Ferrari because there is a lot to discuss. A lot has amazingly happened since we were last discussing Brazil. Actually, I have to say, I'll give a quick plug. We did speak to Alex Jakes, the F1 TV commentator and Channel 4, about his new book, Grid to Glory. So we have done another pod between now and Brazil. So please do check that out. It's very good. He is very interesting. But just to talk about Ferrari, the other thing that's happened in between were these John Elkann comments. John Elkann is the big, big, big boss at Ferrari. Supremo, should I call him that as well? He said, very strangely, that the drivers should focus on driving and talk less. It was quite an astonishing comment. I found it very bizarre. And given that he wants them to talk less, the drivers have done nothing but talk about Elkann's comments at press day, as you can probably imagine. Lewis Hamilton was asked about it. Charles Leclerc was asked about it. I thought Lewis Hamilton was really interesting in his response because he was saying he was defending his work ethic. When he was asked if he could focus any more on driving, he said, "No, not really. I wake up thinking about it. I go to sleep thinking about it. I think about it when I'm sleeping. If anything, I have to focus on being able to unplug more." I thought the comments were really unfair. Charles Leclerc also revealed press day yesterday that John Elkann had called him the morning he made the comments to say he was going to make the comments,
Yeah.
which the whole thing is so bizarre. This is really airing dirty laundry, and it doesn't seem like a good thing for Ferrari to be doing, does it?
It was Ferrari in politics. What more can we
Oh, I
expect? It's
know.
always the way, isn't it? I mean, that whole balancing of a Formula One team versus brand versus car company ownership, politics. There's so much that goes into it. It's more than just a Formula One team, and I think that that's probably where it's come from. I think Elkin has publicly supported Fred Vasseur, so he's got to be seen to carry on that narrative. And if it means having a go at his drivers in public, then he's going to do so. A very strange approach, not really probably the best way to go about it, but yeah, that's what he's done. Interesting to see the driver's comments. I thought Lewis was quite funny when he said, "Well, if he wants me to talk less, I could do less media," which I thought was funny.
He wishes.
But no, it's a really strange dynamic there at the moment. There's obviously pressure within the system. Ferrari obviously successful in WEC, but struggling in Formula One terms, and that's where they spend the majority of their money. So it's difficult for Elkin at this moment in time to explain probably some of the decision and spending that's going on in their F1 operation, and maybe that's why he's come out and said it. But it was probably wrong to blame the drivers. I get supporting the team boss, but he should be supporting the drivers as well, shouldn't he? Otherwise, it leads to this negativity, and rather than having the story done and dusted, it just carries on going, which is a bad look for Ferrari.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it is massively unfair to blame the drivers when it's quite clear that the car isn't up to scratch either. Okay, maybe Lewis Hamilton's having a difficult year bedding into that team. But I mean, it's not just a team, it is an institution, that place. It is the culture. I mean, no joke, Ferrari is a religion in Italy. It is an enormous pressure to go there and to perform. But even with a not very competitive car, let's be honest, Charles Leclerc's had 7 podiums this season. He's actually had a very good year, given that that car isn't particularly competitive. So why is all the focus on the drivers. Charles Leclerc came out and said, okay, we're just passengers. Probably not the most sensible thing for him to say.
Mm.
It's starting to feel a bit like it's tit for tat
Yeah.
within Ferrari between the drivers and the big boss, which is, for me, utterly ridiculous. I just don't really understand how Ferrari think they're going to move forward with what is, quite frankly, seems to be turning into a bit of a public spat. The PR team, it has to be said, obviously went into overdrive since Elkin's comments, because Hamilton and Leclerc both came out towing the line, although it didn't take a genius to read between what the lines of what they were saying. But it's just, I find it so bizarre. And for me, it's clearly not a happy camp, I don't think. And I also think it's showing in the Constructors' Championship. So Mercedes are currently second in the Constructors' Championship, a place that had been held by Ferrari for most of the season. They are now 32 points ahead of third place Red Bull, and Ferrari have slipped back to fourth and are 4 points behind Red Bull. So Ferrari are in danger of having a really, really terrible year. And like you say, Ben, it's more than just the Formula One team. But Formula One is their shop window. Ferrari don't market. They don't really do advertising or any of that side of it. Everything that they are, their culture, their brand, it is all put out to the world on an F1 track. And it's not going very well for them at the moment, is it?
No, no. Yeah, it's a really, it's just a strange concept, isn't it? I've just Googled their share price, and a big sharp drop after Wednesday, 8th of October, to Monday the 13th. I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah, it's a really odd one. I think we also need to put it into context. It's not as if Ferrari were championship winners. It's been such a long time since that's happened. The whole notion of them throwing everything away as if they're like losing the world championship title, which they haven't held. For well, it's just donkey's years worth of failings, and inability to turn into regular winners. And I just don't get why that criticism has come now, unless there's pressure within.
Hang on, you say they haven't won for donkeys. They were in the constructors' fight last year. They only lost out by 14 points. And actually, given the situation and the run down to the end of last season, they should have been far more competitive at the start of this year. McLaren came out guns blazing, set the tone. They were the ones who were brilliant. And then Ferrari just were nowhere. And actually, they obviously had a bad winter. They obviously can't correlate whatever is going on back at Maranello with what's happening on track. So they could have been Constructors' Champions last year, which seems bizarre to say now. But this season hasn't panned out anywhere near like we were expecting.
But they didn't win it. The last time they won it was in 2008.
No, I know, but the point is they weren't miles away last year.
No,
they
they
were
weren't
actually
miles
far
away.
more competitive and near the front. And now they're just kind of, I don't know, twiddling their thumbs.
Yeah, yes. I mean, that I think I said this before on the other podcasts, that the most disappointing thing is the lack of progress that they've made. You would have thought that with that driver lineup, and we knew that it was going to take a little bit of settling in, but I really thought the second half of the season was going to be the strongest part of Ferrari, and that they'd comfortably be moving into second place in the championship behind McLaren. But that hasn't happened, and that doesn't bode very well for next year and the new regulation changes. I mean, we could all be wrong, and they could come out with a car that's absolutely flying. But I think maybe that's even, I'm only guessing here, maybe that's where Elkin's concerned.
Yeah,
Maybe
well,
he's thinking,
two double DNFs this year. It's not great, isn't it? A double DSQ as well.
yeah,
It's just a bad season for them. And if they really do finish fourth behind Red Bull, I mean, this is no disrespect to Red Bull, by the way, who are a one-man team, let's be honest.
yes, yeah.
They have a number 2 driver. If anyone's seen him lately, could he ask him to turn up to a race? But it's just amazing that Max Verstappen alone could beat Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton.
hmm Yeah, I mean the Red Bull number 2 driver, poor old Yuki. He's been talking about that position, hasn't he, this week, and he's concerned about his Formula One future, and probably
As he should
rightly
be.
so. Probably rightly so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he absolutely should be worried about his Formula One future. Although he has been tied to Aston Martin, who are obviously going to be supplied by Honda next year, the Japanese brand. Okay, there's quite a lot of any other business to talk about. because last time out in Brazil, Oscar Piastri was given a 10-second penalty for the collision with Kimi Antonelli, which also took out Charles Leclerc. The stewards deemed him at fault. 10-second penalty. Carlos Sainz, who is now a director of the GPDA, which is the Grand Prix Drivers Association, the kind of trade union for the drivers, let's call it. He has said that absolutely Oscar was not at fault at all. He's called the penalty unacceptable, and Sainz has demanded a meeting with the FIA because he thinks throughout the season there have been penalties handed out to him as well, but also to other drivers, which do not make any sense. He thinks they're getting penalised just when their tyres lock up, and when your tyres lock up, there's not a lot you can do. You actually do become a passenger in the car. There is a plan for the drivers to have a meeting at the next race with the FIA in Qatar. Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz's teammate, has called it a list of incidents they feel need reviewing. This comes back to the age-old problem, doesn't it? Of there is no consistency with stewarding.
Yeah, it comes back to the same old problem, and the lack of information. And I feel like a broken record when I say this, and I can actually talk now about my background with Supercross and working with the FIM, which is the FIA's equivalent in motorsport. And, I'm trying to put in mechanics where penalties are explained to riders because decisions are made and people are left baffled. Unfortunately, it has been the case in the championship that I'm in that sometimes it doesn't always get communicated, but that's something I'm working on. Formula One, that's been the case for 75 years, it seems, because there's been little communication between the FIA and the F1 drivers in terms of how these penalties are being applied. I think during Charlie Whiting's time, who former race director, sadly passed away, a few years ago now. But since then, we've had that lack of information. I think that decisions have been ad hoc, to say the least. And it's just not fair, is it? I think these penalties are crazy, and we need some consistency. And I've said this before, we need professional stewards, and they need to be accountable. They need to explain why they're making these decisions. I've said the same in football. I think referees should be accountable, and they should be holding press conferences after games to explain the reasoning. And if we can understand the decision-making process, then it will make everyone's life a little bit easier.
Well,
That's what I'd like to see.
2021, we used to have a meeting after every race with Michael Massey, who was the race director who took over from the brilliant Charlie Whiting. And that was actually great. And he did take time to sit down with the media. It was very informal. We just kind of sat around a table and chatted to him and asked him the questions, and he answered as best he could. It was actually very helpful. The only time he didn't do it, you'll be unsurprised to hear, was after Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
But that was actually really useful. But obviously after Abu Dhabi, that got stopped. And he left, obviously, and then he was replaced by two different race directors who shared the role, which was always a terrible idea. Now there's just one, who is completely, by the way, does not speak to the media at all. It's gone from Charlie Whiting, who would come into the media centre and chat away, Michael Massey, who, whatever you think about him, fronted up with us and came and spoke to us, had a relationship. And then the two people, Niels Vitic and, brain has gone, the other one, just completely shut down. The FIA didn't let us talk to them at all.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, what was his name?
I'm gonna have to Google it now. This is terrible, isn't it? This is my brain is.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand to a certain degree why, because obviously the way that the Massey situation played out, and obviously it was an unhappy end due to a poor decision, but then ultimately he got sort of death threats and very, very awkward and unacceptable situation all round. But there does need to be accountability, and I think that they do hold these driver briefings on Fridays usually. Obviously Thursday it must be in Vegas, where they do sort of have a discussion with the drivers, and it's free for them to ask questions. But of course that's not communicated to the wider world, which is what we need. Fans and media, everyone needs to know why these decisions are being made.
Yeah, I
Did you
mean,
find
just
it?
Just to put it into well, no, just to put it into context, Niels Vitic actually randomly stood down, didn't he, a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
with not a lot of explanation, and then was replaced. And it was all very, very bizarre. No, I am going to find it though. You keep talking while I find it. That's so weird. How is my brain just completely gone?
No, it's how it works,
But I
isn't
mean,
it?
that kind of says everything about um, the state of the relationship now between, I guess, the FIA, the race director, and the media, is that we just, yeah, that was it. And they fired, and it seems like they fired Fitich, and they just didn't tell us why. It was,
Yeah. Oh, well, or was it that he didn't fancy doing it all?
oh, I mean, who knows?
Yeah. And then you had Rui Marquez, didn't you? He was the guy that came in.
There you go. In my search for finding out who the other race director was, I've now lost my bookcase. How costly that may be. Eduardo
Was
Freitas.
you going through the books?
I was
Was you
going
going
through all
through
my
the
books.
virtual
Yeah,
books?
I mean, I have all of those massive Formula One books that that Ferrari used to give out to us, which tell you every
Tabletop
single
one.
stat that you ever need. I don't know what I'm ever going to do with the 2017 volume, but anyway, there you go. Um, yes, very strange. So yeah, they will have a meeting in Qatar. I'm sure it will be as unproductive as all the other meetings that they have had. Let's move on
Well,
to what? Go on, sorry.
Qatar will be interesting, won't it, with the tyre stipulations from Pirelli? But we'll get into that later on another
We'll
podcast.
do the Qatar preview. Let's move on because there's been actually still more stuff that's happened in between Brazil and now. Audi have launched their brand, I suppose, as the F1 team. Dare I say, slightly underwhelming? It's just a
Yeah, very
black
strange.
F1 car with a bit of
Yeah,
grey and red.
I think my takeaway was that whenever Audi go into a project, they like to do it their way. They don't really consider what everyone else is doing. They go in it their way and they absolutely want to smash it. And if that means doing a livery launch in the middle of a very busy period of F1 races, then they'll do it.
In Munich, they did it. It was slightly
It
mad.
Yeah, and I mean there was no logos on the car, no brands, so it wasn't for partners. It was purely for Audi, just to say, look, don't forget about us doing Formula One. Maybe that's a reaction to Cadillac, who have obviously been very proactive with their promotion and everything that they're doing. It was a curious time. As I say, right in the middle of this,
Yeah.
or before this triple header, I can only imagine that the drivers didn't really fancy going, but they went along and yeah, did some photos and everyone spoke and said they're very excited. Great, but Audi are just going to do it their way. I think we
Yeah.
just have to accept that.
Some cool old school Audi cars, though.
Yeah,
That was quite
indeed,
cool.
and tapping into that heritage, of their old sort of rally cars, if you like. I think that's pretty cool, and hugely successful in the World Endurance Championship. So they'll bring lots of learning, lots of technology, and I think that they are a really good addition to Formula One. That's to take nothing away from Sauber, but they've not really been the most engaging of teams, I would say.
No.
Probably the worst when it comes to facilitating ideas and different thinking within F1. So it'd be quite nice to have a different approach.
Yeah, it will be. And the other new team on the grid next year is Cadillac, obviously.
Hmm.
This is the final US race, obviously, before they join. They had Sergio Perez, their driver next year. He was testing a previous car. Obviously, that doesn't actually exist for Cadillac. So they borrowed a Ferrari from 2023. Ferrari are going to be supplying their engines. So Ferrari lent them a car so Perez could basically just get back up to speed, which seems like a good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, it does because Bottas has been pretty active. Working with the Mercedes team, lots of time in the simulator. He's stayed sharp, and I think that Perez has had so much time away. The danger is that he become rusty, so it's probably good for him to get back in a car and get up to speed. I think that we spoke about Cadillac's driver choices and why they've gone for these two, and while it would have been nice for them to have gone for maybe an experienced and a younger driver, they've gone with two experienced drivers because they need that. The last thing they need to be doing when they arrive in Australia is sort of holding someone's hand because they're all going to be figuring it out themselves, and there's enough to do without worrying about the drivers. So yeah, look, it's a smart choice, for the launch, and let's see where they go. I mean, there's huge plans for that team. They will be US based. and they will have
eventually.
a predominantly, yeah, a US core design team and builders. All that will be done over in the States, so it'll be interesting.
I'm quite enjoying Cadillac's approach, conversely to what we were saying about Audi. But they'd had their big bonanza in Miami, which was
Hmm.
wild in a nightclub. Probably the first time I've been in a nightclub in about 20 years. But that was quite fun. Dan Towers was there, the big boss at Cadillac, or at GM, I should say, who owned Cadillac. And that was really good. And then they've kind of gone to ground, and every now and again there's a bit of noise from them. They kind of, Bottas is Bottas. If you follow him on social media, you'll be hearing rumblings here and there. Perez is Perez. But I'm quite enjoying the kind of managing expectations. We'll be at the back. It's okay. We're based out of Silverstone for now because that's where all the IP is, but we'll eventually will be in the US. I feel like they've had quite a sensible approach to joining F1 next year.
Yeah, it's starting as a Formula One team from scratch is
Mm.
incredibly daunting. Designing, building, putting in the technology infrastructure, obviously recruiting the staff, finding the buildings in the first place, finding the suppliers, setting up all the purchasing. There's so much. Where
Yeah.
do you start? It started with one person, then it becomes three, and then obviously it's now up to like 600 people trying to pull that thing together, and they've had like 9 months to do it.
Yeah.
So, a frantic dash to get ready in time. I'm not sure if they'll be ready for the first test. Let's see. Fingers crossed they will be.
Yeah, it'll be so fascinating to see how they get on. Although a lot of the people they're hiring, we should say, are people that we know, because everyone has already worked in the paddock. So at least it kind of similar vein to the drivers. You want people with experience because you want to mitigate any chance of disaster. Um,
Yeah, but you've still got to build those
you do,
personalities
yeah,
and that
yeah, and
teamwork.
the team and the
So
culture, and yeah,
yeah,
it is an enormous job. I think Marussia, were they the last one? Producer Miles is saying,
yeah,
yeah, it's built from
yeah.
scratch. Fair play to them. My final, any other business point?
Well, hang on a
Oh, go
minute.
on.
It's important. It's important that we mention Marussia
There you
because
go on.
obviously Graham Loudon,
Yes, of
the guy
course.
heading up the Cadillac project, sorry, was the guy helping Marussia. So
Which I suspect
yeah,
is probably why he was hired.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not.
Good operator, Graham.
Oh, and on that note, any rumours of Christian Horner?
No, I don't. I don't know. I think it's probably still the same as. I know. I see his name linked with every single job going. But I think for the time being, at least, he's probably watching from the sidelines and enjoying what's going on.
Probably enjoying a nice quiet Christmas for once. Um, F1 movie, the movie that
Oh
never
yes.
goes away. The soundtrack is up for 3 Grammy Awards, which I can
Wow.
only imagine makes F1 even happier than they already were. It's up for Best Compilation Soundtrack for Visual Media and for 2 songs for individual consideration. That's pretty amazing, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably a bonus that they didn't expect. I knew that they were working hard on the soundtrack.
Hans
You know,
Zimmer, they got Hans Zimmer in, which is really impressive.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. When I watched the film, I didn't really notice the soundtrack. I think at first the opening sequence you do
I mean, it's not
because
quite Barbie, is it, where Brad Pitt stood at the front singing?
it's true, it's true. But yeah, yeah, fair play. It's obviously a bonus, but of course now they're talking about a sequel, and
Yeah, of
that's the
course.
danger territory. Where how does it go from there? F1 2,
You
F1
can't
2,
call it
F2. Who
F2.
knows? Who knows? No, I know they can't. I don't know. It kind of, the movie ends on that weird note of him going to race in the desert.
I still haven't seen it. Don't do
Oh,
spoilers.
oh, damn it. Okay, well, you should get round
Somehow,
to seeing it
I
at
know.
some
It's one
point.
of my husband's desperate to watch it, and I always find something else to watch.
It'll be on video now.
And oh, I get it on VHS.
Yes.
I mean, it's Brad Pitt's highest grossing film, so fair play.
Yeah,
I mean, you saw
yeah.
it at the
No,
premiere in, or you had the preview, didn't you? In what's it
I
called?
did.
Yeah,
Yes.
Canada.
Yeah, a bunch of cynical journalists all watched together, so that probably wasn't the greatest experience. We was all kind of rubbing each other up. Oh God, that sounds wrong. The wrong way in terms of being critical. Um, we probably weren't as open-minded as perhaps we should have been,
How
but
unlike us.
yeah, no, but we were appreciative of what it was trying to do, and obviously the numbers now reflect that success.
Oh,
So
fair play.
it's probably worth watching a second time.
Is it?
And well, I think from my point of view, yeah, it is to watch it a second time and just to either reconfirm the thoughts I had at the time or to
Be slightly more
change
open-minded
my
to it.
mind.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll watch it
Uh,
a first time.
I mean, look, I don't think we didn't do a podcast to reflect it at the time because we weren't,
We weren't we weren't
recording
back,
these.
yeah.
But there was lots of elements which I found, the technical side of things. That it was very Hollywood, and we was told all throughout the whole process that the whole idea was to be the most realistic F1 film. Now that's a fairly low bar, and there were elements which were true to life, but other bits which were just farcical and not relevant. And I think for me, it's those bits were a little bit disappointing because if it is going to be authentic, it needs to be authentic. I know you can lean on certain things, but there were parts which probably tested that theory.
I mean,
Um,
Brad Pitt is an F1 driver. I was already unable to suspend my belief as soon as
yeah,
he was, in the hot seat for that role. So I think that's why I've been a bit slow to watch it, let's say.
yeah, yeah, and I think the product placement as well is very interesting. Obviously, lots of brands involved and very odd. I don't know. It's just there's bits there, and Stefano Domenicali makes an appearance at the end. There's no Mohammed Ben Sulayem, which is interesting. I don't know. There's lots of talking points, but that's for another day, I suppose. But or we've probably missed the boat to for that
We
that
might have
part.
missed the boat. We'll have to wait for the second
Yeah,
one.
maybe exactly. Let's do the second
Okay,
one.
well, I've got to watch the first one still. Right, I'm off to find my Blockbuster card so I can go and rent the F1 film. But we will be back after the Vegas Grand Prix to do a review of what will most likely be utter carnage with the cold and rain playing its part and the championship fight ongoing. There is no way Norris can win it this weekend, so we will still be talking about this come Qatar. Right, thank you very much for listening. It has been a fun and longer than planned podcast. We thoroughly hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please do rate and review us. And until next time, have a great weekend.
Thank you.